of tea to your desk so that we respect time. It's still a good morning. All protocol observed. And welcome to the second plenary session for this third day, a very important day when you are already contemplating on what next from here. I would like to present to you Professor M.J. Temane. It's a professor, NRFC rated researcher in the Department of Education Studies at University of Limpopo, specializing in curriculum studies. His interest is in curriculum studies, and that includes curriculum theory, indigenous knowledge system, and decolonization of the curriculum. He has made a number of contributions in this area in a form of conference papers, journal articles, and book chapters. His other interests include teacher education for inclusive education, schools as enabling environments, and research in South African higher education. He's involved in a number of intervention projects, such as mental health in schools, multiple literacies, and inclusive education projects. He has also been involved in contract research and projects as an expert consultant. Lately, he led a team that worked on a chapter project on articulation in higher education in the past years of democracy for Council on Higher Education, CHE, and another on articulation policy into and within higher education. We welcome him as he will be presenting with the title, Creating Safe, Equitable, Engaging Schools Through Comprehensive Approaches to School Safety and Supportive Learning Environments. Over to you, Professor. We are listening.
Thank you, Professor Mauto, for your introduction. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is an exceptional honor to me to be part of this August gathering. The work that I'm to present here comes from our research. Thank you. Comes from our research on schools as enabling environments. And I thought we could share together some of our experiences in this regard. Also, this paper is informed by the work that we did with Commonwealth of Learning and UNICEF in South Africa on child-friendly schools. Let me start by giving the agenda that I want to follow. I want to ask these questions. The first one is, what is possible? What can schools do to make the difference in the lives of young kids and youth? And question 2, what should we do specifically if we are to make schools enabling, if we are to make schools empowering? And how to do it? And then how to align what we do so that the synergy comes. And lastly, tap into what resources do we need if we are to make schools enabling environments. The first question is, what is possible? It is possible to provide an excellent education for every student every day. So we should start by dreaming that the goal of every child in the world, we know that about 43% of kids who begin school don't complete, they drop out. But why are these kids dropping out? Perhaps these are the conditions in the school. But our belief is that it is possible for schools to provide every learner, every child with an excellent education every day that is reachable. What can schools do? Schools should provide a protective factor and a context that supports resilience. If schools fail to protect children, children will drop out and will hate school. We know that there has been much research on the subject of deschooling society, doing away with schools. This research points out that schools can be toxic sometimes because there's bullying in schools and there's no safety, etc., etc. The things that we read about on our newspapers. I think across the globe, schools can be intimidating, can be threatening, and can be toxic to the lives of young kids, unless we do something about schools. So let's look at the protective factor and the context that schools can create to make learners resilient against all odds in schools. Schools, number one, should create connections between teachers and learners, between learners and learners, between parents and teachers and other communities. There should be connections. I argue that most schools don't create these connections. And many kids, when they arrive at school, they feel ostracized or alienated, or they feel they are threatened. Some kids, when they go to school, they must be dragged every day because they are crying, they don't want to go there because maybe there's someone bullying. So we need, if we are to create good schools, we need to encourage connections. 2, opportunities to learn what is the learning, the type of learning that is robust. You know, the schools can be boring sometimes. I imagine when I was in the primary schools, that the teacher will come in and make us sing maybe the letter B. He said, B, for the whole hour when the teacher is out doing other things. And really, that is tiring. Yeah, that can be tiring. So many schools don't provide quality learning, unfortunately. And some bright kids become unruly or become unsettled because they find that they are not happy at home. Schools should be engaging, they should be exciting, they should be interesting, it should be fun to go to school. I'm reminded of one child had gone to the Sunday school, and the Sunday school teacher was teaching, and when the bell rang that they can be out, and this boy jumped up and said, "Whoa! The Sunday school is out." I don't know how many kids are excited when it comes to that time when they should go out. And when it's perhaps Sunday, they are supposed to go to school. The next day, they feel stressed because schools are not engaging. I'll not read all the points here, but schools should provide hope. Schools should provide agency, and schools should provide a sense of the future. But also, sometimes we find that schools are foreign spaces. They don't have connection with the cultural way of doing things. And these are things that make schools, those who are advocating for deschooling, doing away with schools. The schools sometimes can teach you things that you don't believe in. Let's say, for example, at home the child is taught that prayer doesn't work. There's no such a thing as prayer. One mother to a kid, when the grandmother died, and they tried to explain that no, this fellow is in heaven, and he has now become a rose, a flower. And they asked him, when you want to be a flower? What kind of flower are you going to be? And when he arrived at school, he tried to propagate that theory from the mother. And the other kids said, no, there's no such. That person is under the ground. And he came home and said, you lied to me. You said people are going to heaven, but they're going down. So sometimes there's no connection between the school, the cultural perspectives of the child, and the historical connections. So schools can be foreign places if we don't convert them. All right, the list is long, so Madam Chair, what time should I break? 11. That is not possible. Candle, 11 o'clock, okay. So I'm going to skip some of this. Safety, emotional learning, positive adult and peer role modeling. These are the things, we'll call them protective factors that can make schools interesting. I wonder how, before I jump out of that, I wonder how many of us, if we were to be sent back to the primary school, will agree to go there, or will just run away because of the kind of schools we attended. All right. How can we do it? I'm quoting a section of a book called Learning, Science and Development. I'm just reading it out for you and just make a small comment. The past few decades have seen an explosion of knowledge about how children grow and develop, how they become learners, and the factors that nourish or hinder their growth into adulthood. A convergence, and this is very recent studies on how children learn, a convergence of research across many scientific disciplines, including neuroscience, epigenetics, early childhood, the social sciences, psychology, the science of diversity, strength-based approaches to human thriving and learning sciences. This research paints to us that schools should be done differently. For example, we should tap to how the mind works. We should tap also into how social interactions work. I think it is this area where we need to explore more research. How do we bring into emotional learning, for example, maybe for teachers and for learners? How do we bring in psychological theories about learning? I think that we have tapped into, et cetera, et cetera. And I found this very, very interesting, that as we try to create sustainable goals, development goals, that we should begin to make our schools turn into that direction where we have a multiple approach to learning. Yeah. That's the book called The Learning Science and Development, which is exciting to read. I wonder whether I have the website there to get it. But now learners we need to bring in the science people, we need to bring in social workers, we need to bring in psychologists, so that they explain to us how the mind works and how people grow and relate, and in that way we'll be able to provide. What this book and others will point out about new approaches to teaching or making schools livable or empowering, they will say schools, rather than when we were at school, require additive and growth mindsets. There should be research, just bringing people or young kids into a classroom, dump them there and draw or grade a teacher there and think that it will work. It doesn't sometimes work like that way, because the mindset of this teacher is in a box. Schools are traditionally oppressive. Yeah. I remember one fellow, when we were writing grade 12 matric, wanted to go to the bathroom. We were writing the exam, and they said, no one should go out of the exam. No one should go out of the exam. And this fellow was pressed, so he had to decide whether to continue with his exam paper or to mess himself. So guess what he decided? He decided to leave the paper there and go away. And they said, you don't come back to the wall if you've gone out for the bathroom. This is a kind of mentality that many teachers, especially older teachers, still have about how they discipline students. Okay, so you need those additive and growth mindsets, transformational actions, effective collaboration. I've highlighted collaboration here because I argue towards the end that collaborations is one of the comprehensive approach to teaching. I'll come to that. Changing practice and relationships, supporting change, and so on and so forth, rather than stagnation. These are some of the things that the school require if it is to produce good schools. Yeah, good schools, not in terms of just producing results, but that is not the area I want to touch today. That this obsession about just getting results sometimes is not real good education. In order to achieve this, we don't need to be in a hurry. We don't need a silver bullet, and everything is done. It's not going to happen like that. It is not a once-off thing. Let's move from here. We're going to change schools. This week schools will be changed. It's not going to happen. And it does not need a skyrocket scientist who can come up with a revelation or an answer that we have not seen before. We don't need a prophet to give us a solution to the problems that I've alluded to in schools. What do we need? We need partnerships, we need collaborations, and we need solidarity. For example, the COVID-19 pandemic, although it caused a lot of harm and lamentation, but it also revealed to us the importance of, in terms of the school context, the importance of parents in the education of their children. Because learners or children could not go to school, then they were given tasks that their parents should teach them from home. I've got a friend of mine here who is an advocate of homeschooling. And for the first time, of course in my history, I don't know elsewhere in the world, parents were helping their learners, teaching them. And they maximized the results. They closed the gap that schools had opened. So such new approaches should be encouraged if we are to make schools powerful. I like this statement: there is a need for schools to align the subjects that they teach or the curriculum with the Sustainable Development Goals. I wonder if you drop into any of the schools in this area and just ask the teacher, are you aware of the Sustainable Development Goals? Teacher will say, what? I've never heard of such. It is because the curriculum, our curriculum, sometimes is aloof from reality of everyday happenings in schools, and therefore we don't leverage our teaching, our subjects, our curriculum in the broader issues of life, okay, or issues like sustainable goals, and that is what I advocate. And I want to give an example of our study, of our research, a collaborative research between the University of Pretoria, the University of Limpopo, and London Institute of Education. Funding comes from, because the study is still going on, funding comes from London. The NRF of here, I've forgotten the name, which gives funding. And in this example of working together in collaborations, the focus is on reading. Can I have it here now? I don't have it. I'll check it. The focus is on teaching how to read. And there we found that we formed some kind of collaborations. And the list there, these are the people, the researchers, which is ourselves, but yeah, I didn't include us here, but the researchers, one professor from London, one professor from Pretoria, and myself from Limpopo. Teachers, we collaborated with the teachers. Then we had some funding to hire people called reading champions. Actually, the government had teacher assistants. So we asked the teacher assistants when their program, their contract ended, to be part of the reading champions. So they go to these schools that were working in and read. Principals, we're training principals on how to do instructional leadership, support teaching and learning and reading in particular, and district officials. Although we have not concluded, we don't have conclusive results, but the excitement it has created and the love for reading, we ask the young kids, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, to write their own stories. We're teaching them how to write their own stories. And the excitement in the air is amazing. But we are doing the analysis, we'll see what we will get. This is just an example of our story. Now, in terms of, as I said earlier, good schools are not only those who produce good results. Of course, everyone wants good results. But it will be a cherry on top of the cake if good results would be accompanied by the well-being of children. Because, I'm a critic of some of the approaches that are taken, which are exam-driven, where kids from Sunday to Sunday, they are subjected to schooling. And I thank God I didn't go through that system. I think I could have dropped out. But schools should be able to create well-being. And I just want to look at the highlighted 4 areas where well-being is very important. Emotional intelligence, emotional well-being, social, psychosocial factors that should accompany our schools. Number 1, safety. Are children safe? Do they feel safe? One mother was telling us at church that her child did not want to go to school. And then they forced her to go to school. And when she arrived, when they dropped her, she cried. And as they investigated, why is she afraid to go to school? They found that she said the teacher beat her. And for that, she was afraid of the teacher. So there, schools are not providing safety. Not only physical safety, but also emotional safety. Do schools provide preparedness? Are schools able to prepare students to prepare to go to higher education? Do the distinctions, or level 7, whatever you call it in your context, from matric, do they mean anything at the university? And in most cases, we find that we are wanting in that area because the preparedness is not providing well-being. Connectedness, I've already talked about that. Engagement, I've already talked about that. When we create schools and community contexts that support resilience and well-being, then students will feel, or students or learners will feel safe and supported in their environments. What will be adaptable, will be caring, will be supportive. The parents will always support learners and so on and so forth. And the other ecological assets that we can use in the society. A sense of mastery of the life circumstances, a strong executive function and self-regulation skills, affirming our faith, whatever faith it is, or our cultural traditions. These are about resilience. Students go there against all odds, they are able to survive. Schools can provide protective factors when they teach skills on problem solving, conflict resolution, opportunities of social integration, making friends, feeling that I am who I am, a sense of worth, stable environment, and responsibilities for others and animals. When are schools toxic? When are schools creating risks for learners? Schools can create alienation. I don't want to go deep into these things, but when I was in the primary school, I was in a group where we were called, stupid, dull people. Yeah. And they segregated us. I remember we were using forms then, but now it will be grade 8. It was grade 8, A, B, C, D, E, F. So ours was the F there, the last. the last group, and we always felt alienated, not welcome. We talked about that. They can create lack of robust opportunities. I've touched that one. Disengagement, academic and social frustrations. We can learn to be helpless and be specialist in this in helplessness. Chaotic transitions, negative relations with adults, teasing, bullying, gangs, microaggressions and stereotyped, poor adult and learning role models as we find in schools, placement and segregation with antisocial peers, school-driven mobility and harsh discipline and suspension and expulsion, and so on and so forth. But when we talk about safety, we're not talking only about physical safety. Are kids emotionally safe? Are they able to access the resources? Learning, it is not only academic. Do we have deep learning systems? Do we understand critical thinking? Do we produce learners? And then well-being, and so on and so forth. What resources do we need? That agenda, you remember, what is it that we should have to make schools enabling? Is the solution about solving teachers, getting the right teachers? Or is it about getting the right? Are the students the problem? The answer is no. And we have research that bears that witness that we need, as I said, that book, Learning Science and Development, we need stress contagion in the classroom, the work of Mark Greenberg, reduce teacher stress, best approaches to safety. These are resources that we need. As I said, we don't have quick fixed answers. We can just fix it quickly, take it to the garage and it will come back. No, we need to create that kind of social, emotional well-being for teachers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Temane. Let's give him a round of applause again. Thank you. It's now question time. I'm going to give you this, I'm offering you this opportunity to ask questions if you have any. And at the core, he emphasized that it is possible to provide quality education every day in a safe, equitable, engaging schools through comprehensive approaches. Do you have questions? I can't see hands. Okay. There is one hand here. Could you assist there? She is. Thank you.
Prof. Temane, thank you very much for a wonderful presentation, which was very much comprehensive, also very easy to follow. So your topic was, in part, creating equitable schools. And I know I wanted to really zoom into how you conceptualize the term. And you said it's to basically provide equal access and treatment. And basically ensuring that treatment is sufficient. You also spoke about transformational actions. And I was wondering if you can just really expand further on that.
Yeah, sorry.
My
can
name
you-
is Dr. Mchizimrondo,
I
University of Free
can't-
State.
Sorry, it's echoing. I can't hear very well. What is the question?
May you please repeat?
Sorry
Yes.
about it.
Yes. Okay, I'll just stand. I hope I'm
Yeah.
audible.
Yeah.
Is it better? Okay, so my name is Dr. Mchizimrondo, University of the Free State. And I really just wanted to zoom in on your topic, which in part was creating equitable schools, in specifically in how you conceptualize the term, and which was in providing equal access and treatment and ensuring that treatment is sufficient, right? But you also spoke about transformational actions,
Yeah.
and I was hoping you can just
Open it up.
expand further on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Basically, it's about schools, the mindset of teachers being transformational. I think in the simplest terms, I know there'll be more sophisticated way of defining it, but I'll say believing in change, encouraging change. Let's take, for example, that learners who have experienced learning difficulties in one or the other can be accommodated in same schools with others who are without these disabilities. When we encourage as teachers these learners and create space for them, access to them, we are being transformational. But I think there will be other examples of how our mindset should change. And the other day I was teaching people, should students' voice be heard in curriculum development? And others said, no, students don't know anything. They must be told not to be, not that we should hear from them. And I gave an example of a friend of mine, Ntatembo, whose daughter, when they were building his house, they consulted this kid, was still very young, 10 or so. They said, what kind of house do you want us to live in? Want your bedroom to look like? And she explained, please, it must have a bathroom inside. I don't want to use the main bathroom there. I want to have mine. And they changed their style into that direction. That is a mind that is ready. It's an additive mind, ready to add, to go, to transform how we teach, what we teach, and how we view students. Thank you. I hope I have answered you.
There is another hand there.
Thank you very much for that elaborate presentation. My name is Clement Sichimwa from the University of Zambia. Just a comment. You cited an example of how schools can be oppressive, and you gave an example of how learners were not allowed to go to the bathroom. But one other source of oppression is from fellow learners, the issue of bullying. The issue of bullying in schools is a major problem that might disadvantage certain learners from going to school. So in the spirit of the transformative mindset, how can we teach other learners to treat fellow learners as equals and not bully them?
Yeah. In the last Sunday's paper, in Sunday Times, if I recollect well, whether it's Sunday Times, but there was a march. Was it in Cape Town or where, against bullying in schools. I think the problem of bullying, I wonder whether it is only a local problem or places like Finland and Denmark and so on, also encounter that. It's a big problem in many schools, and sometimes people are not aware of it. But your question is how, if you have a transformative mind or a transitional mind, what can you do? I would begin by including it as part of the curriculum. It is not something you say, don't bull, I'm going to beat you. Don't bull, I think it must be addressed from as a curriculum factor or matter. It must be included in the life orientation program. I mean, in South Africa, we talk about life skills and life orientation. I think it must be taught, not only in schools, but also in other sectors of society. For example, churches or parents meeting. It is a pandemic of its own, and it's threatening to maybe the 43% of learners who don't complete their primary school. Perhaps part of it is that, but this is just my speculation. But I think that would be the approach.
Thank you. I don't see any, there is another hand at the back and here, and whilst they are going there, we are left with 3 minutes, but then prepare and explain the collaboration. How does it work? You mentioned that it's London, Pretoria, Limpopo. The benefits for the learners especially. Thank you. Go on, madam.
Thank you. Thank you for a very interesting talk. My question is basically quite simple, and I'm not 100% sure of the relevance to the South African context. But it relates to discipline in school, disciplining children. Well, my focus is on Tanzania, where I think almost 100% of the teachers in primary and secondary schools are using the stick and find other ways of physical punishment and also mental or emotional punishment. Do you have any advice of how can you deal with this? Because I think that is one of the factors that it complicates schooling for a lot of children. It makes them feel insecure and afraid of the teacher. So do you have any advice? Thank you.
Well, that's another area.
Can we take that other question so that you respond to them once? There was a hand there. You respond to all of them, then we look.
To mainstream the idea of health and well-being in schools. So my question would be, what would you advise government? You know, because we're still sitting in the silo and being marginalized when we speak about well-being. When we speak about subjects in the school, we listen to, but if we speak about health and well-being, from a psychological perspective, we feel marginalized. So I just want you to comment on that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll also take the collaboration one.
Yes.
At once. Let me start with
in 1 minute.
Yeah, corporal punishment is abolished in schools. But I think what will not make it happen, discipline without a stick, are the conditions under which teachers and children find themselves. Because where you have overcrowding, for example, or where you have hungry children together, there will always be disciplinary problems. Where schools are porous, drugs are exchanged in schools, the problem will not end. So the legislative approach is good, yes, but it is not good enough to provide an environment where they can be disciplined. So where do I think we should start? I think we should start with addressing socio-economical problems, such as lack of space where learners can sit. You know, when I was in the primary school, primary school and secondary school, we were 4 on one desk. And sometimes if you are on the side, the whole day, you don't have a full seat. You sit with half of your staff. Yeah, okay. Okay, that will be my venture. And Ansi,
Quickly.
yeah, there's a move now. For example, the Limpopo Department of Education has a move to bring in psychosocial factors, emotional learning in the front. I mean, all these years, people were just emphasizing being academic subjects, and they look down upon psychosocial subjects. I'm hopeful that that move will make an entry into that problem. In terms of collaboration, in terms of funding, the one that you asked, the funding comes from the UK. But it was a collaborative proposal that we put together, and it is specifically on teaching reading in schools, because reading is a big problem in our schools. So who benefits? Mainly the children, but also the researchers. Yeah, I don't know whether, yeah,
Okay.
but that's the time I can.
Thank you. Let's put a full stop here and clap hands for Temane. On that note, we would like to thank you, Prof, for presenting to us. We have learned a lot. That is token of appreciation. You don't have to delay it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, all of you. Let's move to the next session. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Quickly, the SIG on HIV's SIG 7 did not take place earlier on. It has been moved to Rose Room. For those who are interested in that SIG, please go to Rose Room. The presentation that was scheduled for Rose Room, you will get an announcement when you get there as to which other room has it been moved to. Let's go to the breakaway rooms. Those who are supposed to check out today, checkout was at 11. The hotel is asking that we assist them with returning the keys so that they can prepare them for the next guests that are coming. Thank you.